Do you, Lucy Sterling, take Brandon Pierce to be your lawfully wedded husband? My granddaughter smiled, ready to say, I do. That's when the police walked down the aisle, and she turned to look at me like I'd ruined her life. Grandma, what did you do? If only she knew I was the only reason she was still standing there alive. Do you, Lucy Sterling, take Brandon Pierce to be your lawfully wedded husband? The church was so quiet I could hear the soft rustle of Lucy's dress as she shifted her weight. Sunlight poured through the stained glass windows and painted her veil with little colors, blue, gold, red, like heaven itself was celebrating her. My granddaughter opened her mouth to say I do. Her face was glowing, not just smiling, glowing. That kind of happiness people wait their whole lives to feel. And then, I saw them. 2 police officers stepped into the church. Not outside, not in the back, inside. They walked down the aisle like they belonged there, calm and steady, like they were part of the ceremony. And for one long second, my mind refused to understand what my eyes were seeing. Lucy's smile faded. She turned slightly, looking past Brandon, looking past the pastor, looking toward the aisle. Confusion swept over her face first, then fear, then something sharper. Something I had never seen on her before. Betrayal mixed with disbelief. Her eyes found me in the back pew. And even from that distance, I felt it in my bones. That look said, Grandma, what did you do? Because in that moment, the whole church didn't just notice the officers. They noticed me. They noticed that I wasn't shocked. I wasn't gasping like the guests. I wasn't turning to whisper. I was sitting still, my hands clasped tight in my lap. My heart pounding like it wanted to crawl out of my chest. And that's why everyone tells the story like this. A 74-year-old grandmother destroyed her granddaughter's wedding day. But the truth is, I didn't walk into that church to destroy anything. I walked in to save her, and saving her came with a cost I'm still paying. Before I tell you what happened next, before I tell you why the police came down the aisle at the exact moment Lucy was about to say I do, let me ask you something. If you knew the person your granddaughter was about to marry had a secret that could ruin her life, would you stop the wedding, even if she hated you for it, even if the whole family blamed you, even if she never forgave you? Because that's the choice I had to make. And I made it. But to understand why, you need to know who Lucy is to me, you need to know what we survived together, and you need to know exactly who Brandon Pierce really was. Lucy has always been the light of my life. I'm Vivian Sterling. I'm 74 years old, and I've buried more people than I ever thought I could. My husband Harold passed first, then my daughter Sarah, on. And when cancer took her, it didn't just take a life. It took the center of mine. Lucy was only 10 when her mother died. 10 years old enough to understand loss, but too young to carry it. And as if losing her mother wasn't cruel enough, her father left, just packed up and disappeared, like he was walking out of a store, not out of a child's life. He died. That's what my sister told me she heard through the family grapevine. The burden. As if my granddaughter was a heavy suitcase he didn't feel like dragging around. So Lucy came to me, and I raised her. I taught her how to braid her hair, how to ride a bike, how to study for exams, how to smile at people even when she felt like breaking inside. But the one thing I couldn't teach her, how to stop feeling abandoned. That wound in. Lucy didn't remember much about her mother, Sarah's laugh, the way she sang off-key in the shower, how she burned pancakes and still served them with a grin. But Lucy remembered being left behind. And when a child learns that people can leave, they start clinging to anyone who stays, even if that person doesn't deserve it. Especially if that person doesn't deserve it. That's what I didn't understand until later. Back then, I just wanted her to be happy. So when she brought Brandon Pierce to Sunday dinner, I told myself to keep an open mind. Brandon was handsome, like he was made to look good in photos. Tall, neat haircut, clean nails, expensive watch. Everything about him looked carefully chosen. Even his smile. He shook my hand with a firm grip and held eye contact just a second too long. Not warm, not friendly, measured. He worked as a junior investment banker, or so he said, drove a leased BMW, talked with confidence about markets and smart money like he was reading from a script designed to impress. At the dinner table, he cut his roast beef like a surgeon. Slow, careful, controlled. "Mrs. Sterling," he said smoothly. "Lucy tells me you were quite the businesswoman in your day. In my day. That." I kept my face calm. "I did well enough," I replied. But I watched him as I spoke, because behind his eyes I saw something ticking, calculating. Lucy, bless her heart, beamed like she'd brought home a prize. "Grandma built Sterling Financial from nothing," she told him proudly. "She managed portfolios for half the wealthy families in the city." The moment, not dramatically, not obviously, but his interest sharpened, like a knife finding its edge. "Fascinating," he said, leaning forward just slightly. "The financial world has changed so much. I'd love to hear your thoughts on modern investment strategies sometime." It sounded polite, it sounded respectful, but something about it made my skin tighten, because it didn't feel like curiosity, it felt like scouting. Still, Lucy looked so happy, and after years of watching her struggle, watching her flinch when people got too close, watching her pretend she didn't care when friends forgot her birthday, watching her laugh too loud at jokes that weren't funny just to keep people around. Seeing her finally open up felt like a miracle. So I smiled. I refilled his wine glass. And I told myself, maybe I'm being unfair. Maybe I'm just protective. The engagement happened fast. 3 months. That's all it took. 3 months of fancy dinners, weekend trips, and constant texting. And suddenly Lucy called me crying with joy because Brandon had proposed at an expensive restaurant downtown. She showed me the ring the next day. It was modest, tasteful, not small, but not what you'd expect from someone who bragged about working in finance. Brandon said he wanted to buy a bigger one, but he was being fiscally responsible. Lucy gushed like that was the most romantic thing in the world. "He's so thoughtful, Grandma," she said, eyes shining. "He said we should save money for our future instead of spending it all on a ring. Thoughtful, or cheap, or worse, strategic. But I didn't say it, because you don't crush a girl's happiness when she's holding it with both hands like it might disappear." And Lucy always held happiness like it was fragile, like it didn't belong to her. Wedding planning swallowed the next 3 months. Lucy poured herself into it like someone racing against time. She chose a small church downtown, St. Mary's on 5th Street, because she said it felt classic. She booked Riverside Country Club for the reception. She obsessed over flowers like the wrong arrangement could doom the marriage. Brandon stay. He agreed with everything, smiled at every decision, told her she had excellent taste, and in public, he was perfect. He held her hand. He opened it. He made her laugh. And when Lucy talked about their future, about babies, about a house, about finally having a real family, her voice sounded lighter than it had in years. That's what made it so hard, because even while my instincts whispered something is wrong, my heart whispered back, "Look at her. Look how happy she is." So I swallowed my doubts. Until 1 week before the wedding, that's when everything changed. That's when I discovered what Brandon really was. And it happened in a place I didn't even plan to be. The Marriott Hotel, Tuesday night, a small velvet box in my hand, and a door that wasn't fully closed. I was about to knock, when I heard Brandon's voice clearly through the gap, and what he said next turned my blood cold. I stood in that quiet hotel hallway with the small velvet box in my hand, telling myself to be quick. Lucy had called me around 6, panicked. "Grandma, I forgot Brandon's grandfather's watch. His mom is insisting he wears it during the ceremony. Can you please drop it off? I can't leave the florist appointment." She sounded so stressed that I didn't even think twice. "Of course, sweetheart," I told her. "Text me the room." "It's not a room," she said. "It's a private dining suite on the 3rd floor. They're doing the bachelor dinner there. Nothing wild, just Brandon and a few work friends, including," she mentioned, "a business partner named Nathan Reed." I didn't like that phrase, business partner, because Brandon had only ever described himself as a junior banker. In my experience, junior bankers don't have partners. They have supervisors, they have bosses, they have people who tell them what to do. But Lucy was in wedding mode. Everything sounded normal to her. Everything felt safe as long as Brandon was smiling. The Marriott staff knew me well enough. I'd hosted fundraisers there for years, back when Sterling Financial sponsored half the charity events in the city. So the concierge didn't hesitate. He pointed me toward the elevators, like I belonged there, like I was just another woman delivering something forgotten. I wish I had turned around. I wish I had gone home, because the moment those elevator doors opened on the 3rd floor, my instincts started screaming. The hallway was too quiet for a party. The lighting felt dimmer than it should have. And the laughter I heard was muffled, controlled, like men keeping their voices down on purpose. I walked carefully, heels soft on carpet, and found the door Lucy had texted me. It wasn't fully closed. You. At first, I thought I'd knock and step in quickly, hand over the watch, smile, leave. But then I heard Brandon's voice. Clear. Confident. And the words that came out of his mouth weren't the words of a groom celebrating his future. They were the words of a man counting his winnings. "Come on, Nathan," Brandon said, and I heard the smile in his voice. "You should see the old lady's house. Fresh flowers every week. Original artwork on the walls. And that's just what's visible. Old lady." My throat tightened. A second voice, deeper, answered. "Are you sure she'll go for it? Some wealthy women are sharp with their money." Brandon laughed. And I swear to you, that laugh made the hair on my arms lift. "That's the beauty of it," he said. "I'm not going after her directly. Lucy's the key. Lucy's the key." My hand clenched around the velvet box so hard the edges dug into my palm. "After we're married," Brandon continued, "I'll start working on her. Family emergencies, investment opportunities. You know the drill. She trusts me completely. She'd do anything to help her new husband succeed." There was a pause, then another voice chimed in, one I didn't recognize. "And the business documents?" Nathan answered like he'd rehearsed it. "Already prepared. The coastal development project looks legitimate on paper. Fake prospectuses, forged references. We even rented temporary office space downtown, so it checks out. Coastal development, fake prospectuses, forged references." My vision narrowed. I didn't breathe. I couldn't. Because, in that moment, I wasn't just hearing gossip. I wasn't hearing a crude joke. I was hearing a plan, bad. A plan that had been built before my granddaughter ever put on a wedding dress. "The old woman will never know what hit her," Nathan added casually, like he was talking about the weather. My fingers went numb. "And if Lucy gets suspicious?" the unknown voice asked. Brandon's response came fast, too casual, too practiced. "Lucy won't be a problem," he said. "She's desperate for approval, especially from father figures. Her dad left when she was 10. Poor thing latches onto anyone who shows her attention." My stomach turned. They were talking about her like she was a broken lock they knew how to pick. Then Brandon said the words that finally made my body move like it remembered how to survive. "Once I get access to Sterling's money," he said, "Lucy becomes dispensable." Dispensable. I felt my pulse in my ears. "I'll give the marriage 2 years," he continued. "Maybe 3 if she's useful. Then I'll find some reason to divorce her. By then her grandmother's investments will be long gone, and Lucy will be too humiliated to press charges." Humiliated. The laughter that followed wasn't loud, but it was cruel. My hand trembled. The velvet box release. It hit the carpet with a soft thud, and in that instant every voice inside the room paused. Someone shifted closer to the door. I didn't think, I just moved. I bent, grabbed the box and walked away as calmly as my shaking legs would allow, toward the elevator, toward air, toward anything that wasn't that door. Behind me, I heard a chair scrape. I heard footsteps, but I didn't turn around. Not once, because if Brandon opened that door and saw me standing there, I don't know what he would have done. And suddenly, I understood something terrifying. These men weren't just careless. They weren't stupid. They were comfortable. Comfortable talking about ruining lives. Comfortable laughing about it. Comfortable enough to do it again. I got into the elevator and stared at my reflection in the polished metal doors. A 74-year-old woman looked back at me. Grey hair pinned neatly, pearls at my neck, a calm face. But inside I felt like the world was cracking. How had I missed this? How had I let him into our home? Into Lucy's heart? The elevated. And then I got to my car and sat in the parking lot for 20 minutes, gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles ached. I tried to breathe. I tried to think. But all I could hear was Brandon's voice. "Lucy's the key. dispensable, too humiliated to press charges. Then Nathan's voice, calm as a banker, talking about forged documents and fake offices, and then the part that nearly stopped my heart. "What about the old woman herself?" Nathan had asked, and Brandon had answered, his voice turning darker, colder. "Heart problems run in families," he said, "especially in old ladies under financial stress. Sometimes these things resolve themselves naturally. My throat tightened again as I remembered it. It wasn't a direct threat, not in a way that would hold up in court, but it was clear enough. They weren't just counting on stealing my money. They were counting on me collapsing under the shock, counting on me being too old to fight back, counting on the stress to do their dirty work for them. I drove home slowly, watching every car behind me like it might follow. When I finally got inside my house, I locked the door. Then I locked it again, just to hear the click. The house felt too quiet. I set the velvet box on the kitchen table and stared at it like it was poison. Lucy's wedding was 7 days away. 7. I counted them on my fingers like a prayer I didn't know how to say. And the worst part, I knew Lucy wouldn't believe me, because Lucy didn't just love Brandon. Lucy needed Brandon. She needed to believe someone chose her, and if I tried to take that away, she would see me as the villain. But I didn't have the luxury of being liked, not when my granddaughter was about to marry a man who saw her as a tool, a doorway, a key. I stood in my kitchen as the clock ticked loudly on the wall, and I whispered the truth out loud for the first time. I have to stop this wedding. Even if Lucy never forgave me. Even if the whole family turned on me. Even if I had to sit in an empty house afterward and live with the silence. Because at the end of the day, I could survive being hated, but I could not survive watching her life get destroyed while I did nothing. That night, I didn't sleep. I opened my laptop and started digging. I searched names. I searched business registrations. I searched every phrase I remembered: coastal development, Nathan Reed, investment banker, fraud cases. And as the sky outside started turning grey with morning, one thought kept repeating in my mind like a warning. If he's done this before, there will be a trail. And if I could find that trail, I could bring it straight to the altar. Not with tears, not with accusations, but with proof. Because if Lucy wouldn't listen to my fear, maybe she would listen to the truth. And if she wouldn't, then the police would. And that's when I made my next move. The move that would cost me everything, and save her all at once. By Wednesday morning, my eyes felt like sandpaper, and my hands wouldn't stop shaking. I had spent the entire night searching, not scrolling mindlessly, working, the way I used to when a client's portfolio was on the edge of collapse and there wasn't time to waste. If Brandon and his partners were planning to use a fake company, it had to exist somewhere on paper. And it did, not in the way Lucy thought it did. On my kitchen table sat a manila folder stuffed with printouts, business registrations, address records, screenshots, news clippings, and a few notes I'd written by hand when I couldn't trust my trembling fingers to type. The name that kept appearing was exactly what I'd heard behind that door. Coastal Development Company. It was incorporated 3 weeks ago. 3 weeks. A business that Brandon was calling a huge opportunity had been born only days before he proposed to my granddaughter. That wasn't a coincidence. That was timing. That was planning. I made coffee I didn't want. I stared at the folder like it might bite me. And then I called Lucy. "Sweetheart," I said carefully, "can you come by for lunch today? I want to talk about final wedding details." She didn't hesitate. "Of course. I'll be there at noon." Her voice was bright, happy, light. And it broke my heart because I knew that in a few hours, I might be the reason that light went out. At exactly 12, Lucy walked into my house like a burst of sunshine. She kissed my cheek, dropped her bag on the chair, and immediately started chattering. The florist confirmed the delivery time. "The cake place is a mess, but I think it'll be fine. Brandon's suit fitting was perfect. Grandma, you should have seen him in that tux. He looked like something out of a magazine." Then she paused. Her eyes narrowed slightly. "You look tired. Are you okay?" "I am." I poured her coffee. I sat across from her at the kitchen table, and I took a deep breath. "Lucy, we need to talk about Brandon. The second I said his name, her whole body changed. Not much, just a small shift, a tightening. What about him? She asked, cautious. I opened the folder. I slid the first paper across the table. Tell me something, I said gently. Has Brandon mentioned any investment opportunities lately? Something about a development project? Her face brightened again, too fast. Yes. Actually, yes. He has this amazing opportunity with a development project. He said you might want to invest. He's been so excited about it. My stomach sank. He was already laying the groundwork, already working on her, already doing exactly what he told his friends he would do. Lucy, I said softly, look at that paper. Shh. That's Coastal Development Company's registration, I told her. It was incorporated 3 weeks ago. Sheblin. So, I said, her brow furrowed deeper. I don't understand what you're saying. I'm saying it doesn't look like a real company, Lucy. It looks like a shell. Something made to look legitimate on paper so someone can take money from investors. Her face drained slowly, like color leaving a photograph. That's impossible, she whispered. Brandon wouldn't do that. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't accuse. I simply opened the folder again and slid another paper toward her. This is Nathan Reed, I said. The man Brandon called his business partner, Monday. It was a screenshot of an arrest record. Not recent, but real. And beneath it, an article about a fraud investigation in another city. Here he is. Game. Her eyes snapped up to mine. What do you mean? I hesitated. Then I told her, last night at the Marriott, I came to drop off the watch. The door wasn't closed. I heard Brandon talking to his friends. I heard him say he was going to marry you to get access to my money. Lucy's face changed so quickly it frightened me. Shock, then disbelief, then anger so sharp it was like a slap. No, she said flatly. No, you didn't. Lucy, you're lying, she snapped. I swallowed hard. Why would I lie? Her chair scraped back as she stood up. Because fear makes people move fast. Because you don't want me to leave, she said, voice rising. Because you've been alone for so long, you can't stand the idea that I have someone else. No, I said, standing too. That's not true. I want you to be happy. You're trying to sabotage my wedding, she shouted. The word sabotage hit me like a brick. Lucy knocked her coffee cup over as she spoke. Dark liquid flooded across the table and soaked the papers. My evidence, my proof, my lifeline. For a second, I stared at it, frozen, like the universe was mocking me. Then I looked back at Lucy. Her whole body was shaking now. You heard what you wanted to hear, she cried. Brandon loves me. He proposed to me, not to your bank account. Sweetheart, please listen, I begged, trying to gather the wet pages. Please, I'm not trying to hurt you. No, she said, voice cracking. You are hurting me. My whole life, everyone has left me. My dad walked out when Mom died. People always leave, always. But Brandon chose me. Her voice broke. And you can't stand that, she continued. You can't stand that someone finally picked me over you. That's when I understood something awful. Lucy wasn't hearing my words. She was hearing her abandonment. She wasn't seeing Brandon as a man. She was seeing him as proof she mattered. And if I took that away, even to save her, she would rather call me evil than face the possibility that she had been fooled. You are, Lucy, I whispered. I raised you. I love you more than my own life. Why would I invent something like this? She wiped her face hard, angry tears. Because you're old and scared and selfish, she spat. The words landed like bullets. You lost Grandpa. You lost Mom. And now you're losing me, she said. So you're destroying the one good thing in my life rather than being alone. My throat burned. I couldn't even breathe properly, but I forced the words out anyway. I am not destroying anything, I said. I'm trying to protect you. Lucy grabbed her purse. She was already heading for the door. I followed her, my heart panicking. Just please, I said. Please be careful. Please, ask him questions. Watch him closely. Lucy spun around. Her eyes were red and wild. You know what, Grandma? She said, voice shaking with rage. Maybe it's time you made friends your own age, instead of clinging to me like I'm your emotional support animal. Then she slammed the door. Windows rattled, and the silence that followed was the loudest sound I had heard in years. For a moment, I felt so tired I could have sunk to the floor and stayed there. But then Brandon's words returned like poison in my ear. Lucy's the key. Lucy becomes dispensable. And I knew something, with a cold, sharp certainty. Lucy didn't have 6 months to figure it out. She didn't have time to watch closely. In 6 days, she would be legally tied to a predator. And predators don't stop once they win. They tighten their grip. They isolate their target. They turn love into a leash. I looked down at the wet papers and slowly, carefully, I began to spread them out to dry. Because if Lucy wouldn't believe me, then I would stop trying to convince her with words. I would make her see it. I would find someone who could stop him. And if I had to become the villain in her story to keep her alive, then so be it. I walked to my phone, my hands steady for the first time all day. And I dialed the one person I hadn't wanted to involve. A man I knew through the charity circuit. A man who didn't deal in emotions. A man who dealt in facts. Detective Ray Thompson, I said when he answered. Then I swallowed hard. Ray, I need your help. I think my granddaughter is about to marry a con artist. And on the other end of the line, his voice turned serious. What kind of con? He asked. I too. And I told him everything. Because the next step wasn't about family anymore. It was about stopping a crime. Before a bride said, I do. Detective Ray Thompson didn't interrupt me once while I spoke. That alone told me he was taking it seriously. I told him about the hotel hallway. The door not fully closed. Brandon's voice. Nathan Reed. The fake coastal development deal. The way they laughed about Lucy like she was a tool. When I repeated Brandon's line, once I get access to Sterling's money, Lucy becomes dispensable. My own voice cracked. Ray exhaled slowly on the other end of the phone. They live, he said. Relief rushed through me so fast I almost sat down. But then he added the part I didn't want to hear. Believing you and proving it are two different things. My hands tightened around the phone. What do you need? I asked. Evidence of an actual crime, he said. Not a plan. Not a conversation. A crime. I swallowed hard. They're about to commit one. I know, Ray said, but the law doesn't work on about to, unless there's something we can act on. Incorporating a shell company isn't illegal by itself. Renting office space isn't illegal. A man being a creep isn't enough to arrest him. So what can we do? I asked. Do you have victims? He asked. Bank records showing money taken? Forged documents tied to actual fraud? People willing to testify? A pattern? My stomach dropped. Lucy's wedding was in 5 days. 5. And Ray was telling me the same thing the world always told older women. Not enough. Not enough. Not enough. But he didn't hang up on me. He said, listen, I'm not dismissing you. Your instincts are probably right. But Brandon sounds careful. So you need to get me something solid. How? I asked, almost desperate. Start with the company, he said. Try to find proof it's fake beyond paperwork. Fake clients, fake permits, fake projects. If there are victims, there might be old news articles. Online complaints, anything. And Vivian, don't confront him directly. If he's as dangerous as he sounds, you don't want him spooked. I promised him I wouldn't, but after I hung up, I stared at the manila folder on my table and realized the truth. 5 days wasn't enough time to build a case. 5 days was a countdown. And every minute Brandon stayed free, he stayed close to Lucy. That night I called my accountant, James Rodriguez. James had managed the technical side of my finances for years. He knew my history, my assets, and the kinds of games people played when they thought they could outsmart an old woman. James, I said, keeping my voice low even though I was alone. I need you to look into a company. Coastal Development Company. He chuckled lightly, like he thought it was a normal request. What am I looking for? He asked. Whether it's real, I said, or whether it's paper thin and designed to steal money. The chuckle disappeared. Send me whatever you have, he said. I'll run a search. I emailed him everything. Then I did something I hadn't done in years. I drove, not to a charity dinner, not to a luncheon, to an address on a piece of paper. T. When I arrived, my suspicion hardened into certainty. It was the kind of building that rented executive suites, temporary offices, day-by-day leases, mailboxes with fancy names for companies that didn't truly exist, to pay, a place where you could vanish overnight. I sat across the street in my car for nearly an hour. I watched people come and go. I waited for Brandon's BMW. I waited for Nathan Reed. I waited for any sign that a development company was doing actual business. Nothing. Just quiet traffic and busy strangers. When I returned home, James called me back. "Vivian," he said, and I could tell he was choosing his words carefully. "This company is thin." "How thin?" I asked. "Incorporated 3 weeks ago, like you said. Temporary mailing address. No assets I can trace. No permit filings. No major contracts I can find in public records." "So it's fake," I said. "It looks suspicious," he corrected. "But on paper alone, it's not illegal. Plenty of startups look like this. The question is intent." Intent. That was the same word Ray had used. Intent was what Brandon hid behind charm and smiles. Intent was the thing Lucy couldn't see. The next morning, Thursday, I hired a private investigator. Swallowing pride doesn't taste good at 74. But I swallowed it anyway. A woman named Denise Harper came highly recommended. Quiet, efficient, mid-40s, sharp eyes. She met me at my home office and listened without judgment. When I finished, she said, "Mrs. Sterling, your instincts are strong. He fits the profile. Then find me proof," I said. Denise nodded. "Give me 48 hours. 48 hours felt like both nothing and everything. Those 2 days crawled by. Lucy didn't call. No texts, no apology, no wedding updates. Every hour of silence felt like watching a clock tick toward disaster. On Friday afternoon, I went to the florist with the excuse of final payment. Lucy was there. She didn't look at me. She kept her eyes on rose samples and ribbon colors like my presence was a stain she didn't want to see. "Hi, sweetheart," I said softly. She didn't answer. I didn't push, because I could tell she was holding herself together with a thin thread, and if I tugged it, she would snap. Instead, I paid the florist and left. Friday night, I sat alone in my house, the mother of the bride dress hanging untouched in my closet. I stared at it like it belonged to someone else. Then Saturday morning, Denise called, and before she even spoke, I could tell by her tone it wasn't good news. "Mrs. Sterling," she said. "You're Brandon Pierce. He's careful." My heart sank. "What did you find?" I asked. "Nothing criminal," she admitted. "No record, no arrests, no lawsuits, no obvious history. But he's done this before," I insisted. "I heard them. I know he has. I believe you," she said gently. "But if he's done it before, he's never been caught. Or he used different names, different cities, different paper trails." I leaned back in my chair, dizzy with frustration. "So what do?" I whispered. Denise paused. Then she said something that chilled me. "People like this don't gamble unless the prize is worth it. If he's targeting your granddaughter and mentioning your wealth, you're not his first thought. You're his final goal. Final goal." Which meant the wedding wasn't just a celebration, it was a trap snapping shut. Saturday afternoon, less than 24 hours before the wedding, I sat at my kitchen table staring at my phone. I had tried evidence. I had tried professionals. I had tried truth. And Lucy still believed. I was the enemy. I called her anyway, straight to voicemail. So I left a message, my voice shaking but clear. "Lucy, sweetheart, it's Grandma. I know you're angry, but please, just ask Brandon one question." I swallowed. "Ask him to show you proof. Real proof. That coastal development has real projects, real contracts, real permits, real clients." I paused, forcing my voice steady. "If I'm wrong, I will apologize to both of you at your wedding, in front of everyone. I promise." Silence. Then I added the part that felt like begging. "But if I'm right, please, Lucy, please ask him." I hung up, and I stared at the phone like it might ring back and save us. But it didn't. Sunday morning came like a storm. I sat alone at my kitchen table with shaking hands, staring at my cold coffee. In 4 hours my granddaughter would walk down the aisle, and I had failed to stop it. For one terrible moment, doubt crept in. Maybe I misunderstood. Maybe it was just men joking. Maybe Brandon really loves her. But deep down I knew. The tone of his voice wasn't joking. The details weren't joking. The cruelty wasn't joking. He had a plan. A unknown number. I almost didn't answer. Almost. Then something inside me said, "Pick up." So I did. "Hello." A woman's voice came through, trembling, tight with anger. "Mrs. Yu." My breath caught, and I had to call you, she continued, because I recognized the groom. My heart stopped. "What?" I whispered. "I know Brandon Pierce," she said, "and I'm so sorry. But he destroyed my family 2 years ago." The coffee cup slipped from my hand and shattered on the kitchen floor. And in that sound, glass breaking, I realized something. I hadn't found the trail. The trail had found me, and Carol Williams was about to give me the one thing Detective Ray Thompson needed: a victim, a pattern, proof. Which meant Brandon's perfect wedding day was about to become his worst nightmare. For a few seconds after Carol Williams said those words, I couldn't speak. My mouth opened, but nothing came out. Because all I could think was, "Please, not this. Please don't tell me it's real." But deep down, I already knew. My shattered coffee cup lay on the kitchen floor like an omen. I stared at the pieces and felt something harden inside me. Not fear, not sadness, something colder. Mrs. Sterling?" Carol's voice trembled through the phone. "Are you there?" "Yes," I whispered. "Yes, I'm here." There was a brief pause, like she was gathering strength. Then she spoke again, and I could hear the pain in every word. "He did the same thing to us," she said. "He used a different name then, Brian Palmer. But it's the same man, same face, same charm, same eyes." My fingers tightened around the phone. "My daughter," Carol continued, "Amanda, she brought him home for Christmas. He was polite, successful, everything we thought we wanted for her. He made her feel special." I closed my eyes, because I could see Lucy's face so clearly, glowing, proud, believing. "And then," Carol said, "he started talking about an investment opportunity." My stomach twisted. "A development company," she added, voice cracking. "A construction project that was about to explode. He promised huge returns. He said if we invested now, we'd never worry again." My throat went dry. "What was the company called?" I asked, even though I already knew. "It wasn't Coastal Development back then," Carol replied. "It was Pacific Holdings. But it was the same thing. Fake company, forged papers, rented office, professional-looking prospectus. The whole show." I slid down into a kitchen chair. My legs didn't feel like they belonged to me anymore. "How much?" I whispered. Carol's breath hitched. $400,000, she said. "Our retirement, every penny we had saved." My eyes burned. "What happened?" I asked. Her voice turned hollow. "He disappeared," she said. 3 days after we wrote the check, the office was empty, the company dissolved, the bank account closed, the money gone." I heard her swallow hard. "And my daughter," she continued, "she was devastated, not just sad, destroyed. Because she believed he loved her." I thought of Lucy, her wedding dress, her smile at the altar, her mouth opening to say, "I do." I couldn't let her become another Amanda. "Did you go to the police?" I asked. "Of course," Carol said bitterly. "But he had covered his tracks. The detective told us proving fraud would be difficult unless we caught him in the act. And Amanda—" She paused. "Amanda begged us to stop," she finished quietly. She was so humiliated. She didn't want people knowing she'd been fooled. She didn't want to be the girl who got played. A wave of rage rolled through me, because that was exactly what Brandon relied on. Shame. Silence. Dry. "Is Amanda okay now?" I asked softly. Another pause. "Longer this time." "She moved across the country," Carol said. "Changed her name. She still won't talk about it. Some wounds don't close the way we want them to." My heart ached so deeply it felt physical. Then Carol said the words that changed everything. "I kept everything," she told me. "The documents, the emails, the bank statements, the fake prospectus, everything." My spine straightened. "Carol," I said, voice turning urgent, "can you give those to the police? Will you testify?" "Yes," she said immediately. "That's why I called. I saw the announcement, saw his face, and I couldn't let it happen again. Not to your granddaughter." I swallowed hard, fighting tears. Thank you, I whispered. You have no idea what that means. I do, she answered. Because 2 years ago, I prayed someone would do for my daughter what you're trying to do for yours. I didn't correct her. Because Lucy wasn't just my granddaughter. She was my child in every way that mattered. Where are you, I asked. In Portland, Carol replied. But my sister lives near you. I can drive down right now. I'll bring everything. Do it, I said. Please. The moment I hung up, I didn't hesitate. I called Detective Ray Thompson. He answered on the second ring. Ray. It's Vivian, I said. I have a victim. Silence. Then his tone sharpened. Tell me. 2 years ago, Brandon Pierce scammed a family in Oregon, I said. Different name, same scheme. The mother, Carol Williams, has documentation, prospectuses, bank records, emails. She will testify. Ray let out a long breath. That changes everything, he said. How fast can you move? I asked. If her documents show a pattern, Ray said, and if we can link Brandon to the prior fraud, we can get a warrant. Fraud, identity theft, conspiracy. We can move. My hands trembled. The wedding is today. Where? Ray asked. St. Mary's Church, 5th Street, I said. Ceremony starts at 12:30. Ray's voice turned calm and controlled, like a man stepping into work mode. All right, he said. We'll do this clean. I'll get units there. But Vivian, we need the evidence fast. She's driving here now, I said. She'll be at my house within an hour. Good, Ray said. Call me the second she arrives. Don't tell anyone else. Don't confront Brandon. Let us handle it. I agreed. Then I hung up and stared around my kitchen. The house was a mess. Broken ceramic on the floor, dried coffee stains on paper, my own hands shaking like leaves. But underneath it all, something else was rising in me. Hope. Terrible hope. Because now I wasn't alone with suspicions. Now I had proof coming. Proof that Brandon had done this before. Proof that he wasn't just a misunderstood man. He was a predator. And predators don't stop until someone forces them to. But then the next thought hit me like a knife. Lucy. Lucy was about to have her wedding day destroyed in front of everyone she loved. Not in private, not quietly. In a church filled with cameras, whispers, and judgment. She would hate me. She would look at me and see the hand that ruined everything. And for a moment my knees went weak, because I love that girl more than my own breath. The thought of her face when the police walked down the aisle, it nearly broke me. But then I remembered Carol's daughter, Amanda. A girl who got her heart used like a key. A girl whose future got stolen so quietly no one even knew she was a victim. Lucy didn't deserve that. So I made a choice. Lucy could hate me. Lucy could scream at me. Lucy could never speak to me again. But Lucy would be alive. And someday, maybe not today, maybe not next month, maybe not next year, she would understand. At 11:30, the doorbell rang. I nearly jumped out of my skin. I opened the door to find Carol Williams standing on my porch with a thick manila envelope clutched in her arms. She looked tired, determined, like a woman who had been carrying anger for years and finally had a place to put it. Mrs. Sterling, she said. I'm Carol. I stepped aside. Come in. We sat at my kitchen table. Carol spread out the contents of the envelope like laying weapons on a battlefield. Bank statements, screenshots of emails, photos, a fake prospectus that looked slick enough to fool even smart people. And then, she slid a Christmas photo toward me. There he was, Brandon. Same face, same smile, same dead eyes hiding behind charm. Carol pointed at it. That was him with my daughter, she said, voice low. 2 years ago, my throat tightened. Then she handed me printed emails, not love letters, not real affection, manipulation, flattery, control. You're smarter than other girls your age. Your parents are lucky you're so responsible. I trust your judgment more than anyone. Carol's finger tapped the paper. See, she whispered. He builds you up so you feel special. Then he uses that to get what he wants. I felt sick, because I could almost hear Brandon saying those same lines to Lucy. I looked up. Carol, will you tell Ray all of this? I will, she said firmly. Every word. At 12:15, my phone rang. Ray's voice was tight. We're in position, he said. Units outside the church, 2 detectives inside blending in as guests. As soon as Carol's statement and documents are logged, we move. My heart pounded. "It has to happen at the ceremony," I whispered, already knowing. "Yes," Ray said. "We need him in a controlled public space. Less chance he runs, less chance he hurts someone. But Vivian, you understand what this means?" I swallowed. "It means Lucy's wedding becomes the scene of his arrest," I said. "Yes," Ray replied, "and it will be messy." I closed my eyes. Carol touched my hand across the table. "You're doing the right thing," she whispered. I nodded, but my throat felt too tight to speak. Then Carol said something I hadn't considered. "We need to be there," she said. "Lucy needs to see you didn't do this out of spite. You did it because you love her." I didn't want to go. I didn't want to watch. But Carol was right. If Lucy only saw police and chaos, she would never see the love behind it. So I stood up. I smoothed my blouse with trembling hands, and I picked up my purse. "Let's go," I said, because the next time I saw Brandon Pierce, it wouldn't be at a dinner table. It wouldn't be in a hotel hallway. It would be at the altar, and he would finally learn what it feels like to have the trap snap shut on him. The drive to St. Mary's felt like a funeral procession, not because anyone had died, because something was about to, a dream, an illusion. A love story Lucy had built in her mind like a castle, brick by brick, was about to crumble in front of everyone. Carol followed behind me in a rental car. I could see her headlights in my rearview mirror like a silent promise. "You're not alone in this." But I still felt alone. Because in the end, it would be my granddaughter's eyes on me, my granddaughter's heartbreak, and I didn't know if love could survive what I was about to do. The church parking lot was full. Guests were arriving in bright dresses and pressed suits, laughing and smiling, holding gift bags like this was just another beautiful day. They had no idea. I spotted detective, plain clothes, but their posture gave them away. Everything looked normal on the surface. Yet the air felt charged, like a storm trapped inside a room. Carol and I slipped inside quietly and took a pew in the back. The church was breathtaking. White roses lined the aisle. Baby's breath sat like soft clouds around the pew ends. Sunlight streamed through the stained glass, painting everyone with warm colors. It should have felt holy. Instead, it felt like waiting for a bomb to go off. Up front, Brandon stood at the altar in a black tuxedo, handsome and relaxed, laughing with the best man, Nathan Reed, thith, confident, like men who believed the world belonged to them. I watched Brandon lean slightly toward Nathan, whispering something. Nathan chuckled. Brandon smiled. I gripped my purse strap so hard my fingers hurt, because I wanted to stand up and scream. You don't get to smile like that when you're planning to destroy her. But I didn't move. I didn't react. I forced myself to breathe. The wedding march began. Everyone turned, and Lucy appeared at the back of the church. For a moment, everything else disappeared. Lucy was radiant. She wore my daughter's vintage wedding dress, Sarah's dress, altered to fit her perfectly. The lace at the sleeves, the fitted bodice, the gentle sweep of the skirt. It looked like it was made for her. And her face was pure joy. Not nervous joy, not forced joy. The kind of joy that makes you believe the world is good. Tears stung my eyes, because that was the last time I would ever see her look at Brandon that way. Lucy walked slowly down the aisle, savoring every step. Guests smiled at her, some dabbed their eyes. Cameras flashed quietly. I felt my stomach twist, because I knew that whisper wasn't love. It was performance. The officiant, Father Martinez, opened his book and began, "Dearly beloved." His voice echoed softly in the church. I kept glancing forward, watching Ray. He sat 3 rows ahead, dressed like an ordinary guest. His phone rested in his hand, waiting. The ceremony moved on for what felt like an hour, though I knew it had only been minutes. Father Martinez spoke about commitment and trust, about how love protects and honors. I wanted to laugh at the cruelty of it. I watched Lucy's eyes shine as she listened. I watched Brandon nod solemnly, like he believed every word. And then we reached it. The moment Father Martinez turned to Brandon. "Do you, Brandon Pierce, take Lucy Sterling to be your lawfully wedded wife?" Brandon's voice was clear and confident. I do. Lucy squeezed his hands. Then Father Martinez turned to her. And do you, Lucy Sterling, take Brandon Pierce to be your lawfully wedded husband? Lucy smiled. She opened her mouth. Her lips formed the beginning of the words, and Ray's phone buzzed. He glanced down. His expression changed. Then he stood, slowly, deliberately. Excuse me, Father Martinez, he said, voice carrying through the church. I'm Detective Ray Thompson. A ripple went through the guests like wind through leaves. Lucy froze. Brandon blinked, confused for half a second. Ray took a step forward. Police, he said calmly. I need to stop this ceremony. The church went dead silent. I could hear Lucy's dress rustle as she turned. Confusion hit her first. Then fear. Then horror. Brandon's face tightened. What is this? He snapped, still trying to smile like he could control the room. Ray didn't flinch. Brandon Pierce, he said, walking up the aisle. You are under arrest for fraud, identity theft, and conspiracy to commit grand larceny. Gasps exploded around us. Someone whispered, Oh my God. Someone else started, recording on their phone. Brandon's face went white, then red. This is ridiculous, he barked. This is my wedding day. You can't. Step away from the bride. Ray said, Firm? Two officers appeared from the side aisle. Nathan Reed's eyes widened. He stepped back like he might run. And then he did. But he didn't get far. An officer tackled him before he reached the doors. The sound of bodies hitting the floor made several guests scream. Lucy flinched like she'd been struck. Brandon's eyes darted everywhere. Panic, calculation, rage. Then, he saw me, in the back pew. His gaze locked onto mine, and something in his expression shifted. The charm fell away. The mask dropped. And for the first time, I saw the real Brandon Pierce. Cold, hateful, furious. He pointed at me, voice twisted with venom. You, he snarled. You bitter old witch. The whole church turned. Lucy turned too. And when she looked at me, my heart cracked. Because she didn't look like she was looking at her grandmother. She looked like she was looking at a stranger. Grandma? She whispered, voice shaking. What's happening? What did you do? Those words, what did you do? They were exactly what I feared. Brandon tried one last move, one last manipulation. Lucy, he shouted as officers grabbed his arms. Don't believe her. This is a mistake. I love you. But Lucy wasn't looking at him anymore. She was staring at me. The betrayal in her eyes was like a knife. Ray read him his rights. Handcuffs clicked around Brandon's wrists. That sound, metal locking, echoed through the church like a judgment. As Brandon was led away, he twisted his head toward Lucy and called, I'll explain. I swear. Lucy didn't move. She just stood there in her wedding dress, alone at the altar, like her body couldn't process what her heart was feeling. The flowers were still perfect. The music had stopped. The stained glass still glowed. But the dream was shattered. Guests began whispering, standing, shuffling toward the exits like they didn't know whether to run or stay. Father Martinez lowered his book slowly, eyes wide, silent. Carol squeezed my hand. You did the right thing, she whispered. But I wasn't sure Lucy would ever believe that. The church emptied quickly, leaving only the closest family, a few stunned friends, and Ray's team gathering statements. Lucy finally turned and walked down from the altar, slowly, like her legs were made of stone. She didn't cry at first. That scared me more than tears. She stopped halfway down the aisle and looked at me again. Her voice was small. Was it true? She asked. Everything you said. Was it true? I swallowed hard. Carol stepped forward before I could speak. Lucy, she said gently, my name is Carol Williams. 2 years ago, he did the same thing to my daughter. He used a different name, but it was him. He stole our retirement. He broke her. Lucy stared at her. Her lips parted. You're not lying? She whispered. Carol shook her head. I wish I was... Lucy's eyes finally filled with tears. Then she looked at me, and the anger in her face trembled, cracked, and melted into something else. Pain. Pure pain. Why didn't you tell me sooner? She whispered. I tried, I said, voice breaking. I tried, Lucy. You didn't believe me. Lucy flinched, remembering the words she'd thrown at me. Selfish, old, scared. She looked down at her bouquet lying on the floor. And for a moment, she looked exactly like the 10-year-old girl who had stood in my doorway with a suitcase, trying not to cry because she already felt unwanted. I stepped closer, careful, like one wrong move could push her away forever. I wasn't trying to ruin your happiness, I whispered. I was trying to save your life. Lucy's shoulders shook. Finally, she let out a sound, half sob, half breath, and she nodded once, just once, like she didn't have strength for more. I need to go home, she said softly. I'll come with you, I offered immediately. She hesitated, then shook her head. Not yet. I'm not angry like before, but I need time. That hurt, but it was honest. And honesty, after everything, felt like hope. Before she turned away, Lucy stepped forward and hugged me, quickly, tightly, like she was afraid if she held on too long she would fall apart. Thank you, she whispered. 2 words, but they were everything. She pulled back, wiped her cheeks, and walked out of the church still wearing her wedding dress because she was too shocked to think about changing. Carol A. I stood there in the sunlight, feeling like I had survived a war no one else could see. Ray approached me quietly. He'll be charged, he said. You did the right thing, Vivian. I nodded, but my throat was too tight to answer. Because saving someone doesn't always feel like victory. Sometimes it feels like grief. Grief for the day that was supposed to be beautiful. Grief for the innocence that got stolen. Grief for the fact that love had to look like handcuffs to be real protection. That night, I went home to an empty house. The mother of the bride dress still hung untouched. The silence felt heavy, but one truth held me steady. Lucy was safe. And sometimes love means making the hardest choice, even when it breaks your heart. If you've ever been betrayed by someone you trusted, or if you've ever had to be the bad guy to protect someone you love, I want you to remember this. Doing the right thing doesn't always look pretty, but it saves lives, and that is worth everything.